Insiders, Rachel here, and this is a series where I'm talking about how our recommendation system works. In this video, we're going to cover what factors influence how many impressions a video receives, or how many people are shown and offered up the video at the end of the day. So let's get to it. What factors influence your impressions? I'm going to touch on 3 of them today. The first is personalization, so how YouTube personalizes recommendations and make sure that recommendations are relevant for a given viewer. Then I'm going to touch on performance, which I think lots of creators are already familiar with. So this is how a video performs in the context it's shown in discovery. So things like click-through rate, average view duration, average percent viewed, likes and dislikes, all of those signals. Then there are factors outside of our recommendation system, which I'll also touch on. Things like how many viewers are interested in a given topic, how a video is performing relevant to its competition or all other videos that could be offered a viewer. And then seasonal trends like how many viewers are on YouTube in a given time frame. All of these factors combined influence how many impressions your videos get and how many people see your videos. So let's go through them. Okay, let's start off with personalization. So as I said, if we only use performance like click-through rate and average view duration to inform recommendations, everybody would see very similar videos on YouTube, and that's not what the site is designed to do. We want to make sure that recommendations are personalized and relevant to each viewer. Now, the way we do that are mainly by looking at 3 types of signals. The first is a user's watch history. So what videos have they enjoyed in the past? Understanding that will help us offer more videos they're likely to enjoy. But we don't want to just offer stuff that they've already watched. We also want viewers to discover and explore new topics and interests. And the way that we do that is understanding what videos are often watched together. So imagine that 2 users have video A in their watch history, but one user has video B that the other user hasn't seen yet. Video B might be a really good candidate to recommend to the viewer who hasn't yet seen it. So using what videos are often watched together helps us identify videos that a user might not have already watched or been exposed to yet, but might be interested in. The last one is understanding how much of a channel or topic a user watches and how their interests might be changing over time. That helps our systems identify what to recommend them more or less of. Every user has favorite channels that they watch. The ranking of what they watch most will change over time depending on how their interests shift. So this is a really important point. I brought in a gaming example because this is the industry I came from. But it is important to note that viewers' interests will change over time. If you go back 5 years before today, just think about what people were watching on TV. We have different favorite TV shows. We wear different clothes. We have different favorite celebrities. We play different video games. We eat different foods. People's interests change, and it's important to evolve your content over time along with people's interests. And so in this example that I'm showing, for many years, Minecraft was the game that everybody played, and it still is. My cousins still play it all the time, but the video game landscape changed where you had a new game in the mix, Fortnite, in and around 2018. And as people's interests change, as the games that they play shift, so do the videos they watch on YouTube. And Google Trends is the most powerful tool to see how viewers' interests in different topics are changing over time. And no matter what category you're in, I think that it's extremely valuable to look at Google Trends and understand what's happening overall in the world and how people's interests change. Because as people's interests change, so do the videos they watch, which is why it is absolutely essential to always keep experimenting. If you make the same content, at some point, people's interests will start to shift and they'll start watching more of something else. And so constant experimentation is important to really maintain your fame and your audience to evolve along with their interests. If you think about celebrities that have maintained their fame throughout the course of their lives, they had to reinvent themselves many times. So the example that I sometimes give is David Bowie. How many personalities did he have? So many. So my advice for creators is always keep experimenting to find a new thing. And if you experience a long drop in impressions, so over the course of multiple months, 3+ months, and you're releasing the same content, that's usually a sign that it's time to try something new. Because if you're dropping, there's only one of 2 things happening. Your viewers are on YouTube, but they're watching more of other stuff, or they're spending less time on YouTube. And so most of the time, it's the former. It's that their interests have shifted. So identifying when that's happening on your channel is really important because that's usually time to pivot, experiment with something new. So that's personalization. Now let's touch on performance. This is how does our system learn about how a video is performing when it is recommended to a given viewer? So our recommendation system learns from signals like what viewers do when they're shown or offered a video. That's appeal. So we look at when a video is offered to a viewer in recommendations on home or suggested, do they click to watch? Do they ignore the video and choose to watch something else? Do they click not interested? This can tell us a lot about the initial appeal of the video to the viewer. Then once the viewer is in the video, we look at how engaging it is. So did they watch it through? That's average percent viewed. How much of the video did they watch, or how much time did they spend watching? Average view duration. We use a combination of relative and absolute retention to determine if a video is a good recommendation. And then lastly, satisfaction. So once they watched the video, how did they feel about it? There we use the combination of signals that I touched on in episode 1, which are user surveys that we often serve, saying like, what did you think of this video? And users can rate it. And then signals like likes and dislikes. Lastly, I'm going to call these external factors. They're not, objectives of our recommendation system, but they also influence how many people see your videos. So I think it's really important to touch on them. The first one is topic interest. So what's important for creators to know is different topics have different potential audience sizes. And if you think about if you're starting a business, some businesses have different potential market sizes than others that are larger and smaller. So some are more niche interest. A video I was recommended once because it was relevant for me, but probably it would be a niche interest topic, is a lecture about Honduran emerald hummingbirds. So some topics are just going to have smaller potential audiences than others. They're not necessarily relevant to recommend to all viewers on YouTube. And so when you're looking at your own content, think about which videos might be more broad or niche appeal than others. Different topics are going to have different potential audience sizes, and that will influence your impressions. Then competition. Competition is interesting because I don't think creators think about it very much, because when you are comparing your performance, you're always comparing against yourself because that's the data that you have access to. You're looking at how did my video perform relative to other videos on my channel. But what's important to know is that our recommendation system is not ranking you against yourself, but it's ranking your video relative to all other videos that a viewer might watch. And so when we're determining what are the best videos to show on somebody's homepage, for example, we're narrowing that down from the potential 2 billion plus videos that are on YouTube that could be shown a given viewer, and like what are the best recommendations for them. And so competition is important to understand, because if your video is sometimes not receiving as many views as impressions, but your click-through rate and average view duration look high, a lot of the time when that's happening, it's because your video is not performing as well relative to other videos on YouTube outside your channel. So competition is something that impacts how many people see your videos and how much time a viewer spends with content outside your channel. Like if they're watching more of other channels, that can mean they watch less of yours. Or conversely, if they spend less time watching other channels and more time watching yours, your videos might rank higher for that individual viewer. So how content is performing outside your channel also impacts how many impressions your videos receive or how many people are shown your videos. Lastly, we have seasonality. There's 2 flavors of seasonality. You have the first one, which is how many people are on YouTube during different times of year, and that can change. So major fluctuations we see during holidays. So a period where a lot of people might not be viewing YouTube and they're spending time with their families, could be like New Year's or the end of Ramadan. Sometimes we see drops in and around Eid. Back to school in mid-August, a lot of viewership on channels starts to drop and then spikes on Saturdays and Sundays, because that's when viewers are then watching YouTube. Their schedules and behaviors changed. So how many people are actually on YouTube to recommend videos to, that shifts during different times of year. That will impact how many people see your videos as well. The second type of seasonality is topic-related seasonality. So that is how interest changes in given topics during different times of year. So if you upload like a camping video in October, there's not as many people watching that kind of content as there would be in August. So if you uploaded it in August, your video would probably do better. I did a whole video on seasonality, which I can link to in the description. But just know from this section that recommendations is not just based on performance or your click-through rate and average view duration. The other things that influence your impressions are how broadly appealing the topic is, or like how big the potential audience size is for a given video, how videos outside your channel are performing, because again, your video is being ranked relative to all other content on YouTube, and seasonal fluctuations, like how many people are on YouTube to recommend the video to, and how big the interest is in that topic during that time of year. That's it for part 2. In part 3, we're going to cover 10 frequently asked questions about the recommendation system. I hope that was helpful. As always, keep it real.